this is an interesting story because a lot of us have been against the idea of people being able to have what they call gender affirming care on children. Obviously, if a kid's not able to get a tattoo, how could they have gender affirming surgery? That just doesn't make any kind of sense whatsoever. But I will say, and Nate, you may remember this, one of the people in the legal community, Barnes, kind of shocked me a while back. But he was discussing that he didn't think that legislation was the answer for banning gender affirming care or things like that. He was saying, let liability take place to where if a kid or somebody who's not an adult receive the surgery and they have the ability to sue over the fact the problem will straighten itself out. Well, it turns out that Barnes may in fact be correct. And this latest case has really moved the Overton window on this particular issue. Wouldn't you agree, Nate?
I agree 1,000%. I think the issue that's come down to is that, and again, I'm going to say it for myself. I can't speak for anybody else. I disagree wholeheartedly with transitioning children. I just don't think it's medically necessary, and I think at a point, children don't understand their own and their how they don't understand gender and stuff like as an adult. Now, if you're an adult, you do what you want. I don't care. You have surgery, do whatever you want. But doing it before puberty, I think it leads to a lot of problems. And they've shown like people who transition before puberty, you have a lot of people who commit suicide and things of that nature because they're upset at what's happening. And I don't think it's what's it, optional surgery, right? What do they call it? Not non-invasive. What the surgeries that are optional where you don't have to do it.
No, like a facelift and things.
Yeah. But I do think this is doing real harm and elective. And I don't think I think people like, don't get me wrong. I understand the trans community and their issues or how they say they're claiming their issues to be, but I don't think the answer is just transitioning children. I don't think that's the answer to anything. And by doing that, you're actually hurting people. Let's here's the video.
Hold on. There's some history, Nate, that supports that completely. Just culturally speaking, when you grew up, right? Mm-hmm. There were girls who would run faster, beat up boys and things like that. And they were called tomboys. It is literally a term in the culture for girls who kind of ran with the boys and they did things with the boys. It's very, very common, especially when you're talking about little kids, right? Mm-hmm. And then typically what happens is all of a sudden puberty hits, boom, and these tomboys become girly girls. It's a very natural progression. And the really annoying part is it's almost like I think people intervene and they go, and I'm speaking especially from the girl side, but they go, oh my gosh, this girl thinks she's a boy, so we should just take it the whole way rather than just saying, hey, it's a stage and kids go through stages. There's also, boys who prefer playing with dolls, but then they don't necessarily, but then as puberty hits or whatever, or as they grow out of this stuff. It's phases. It's proven there's, thousands of years of this happening. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're 1,000% right. I agree with you 100%. Here's the story. Here's the story from the Washington Examiner. So we want to just let people understand what happened in this story.
A New York jury just handed a $2 million judgment to a detransitioner who says her doctors rushed her into gender surgery as a teen. Fox Varian, now 22, got $1.6 million for the pain from her breast removal at 16, plus $400,000 for future medical bills. She's part of a growing wave of detransitioners suing doctors for pushing transition procedures they later regretted.
So this case, I think, got this far is because the doctors and the psychologists pushed this on this family, right? It was like, oh, do this, it'll make you feel better. It was kind of like, you have gender dysphoria, let's cut off your breasts, make you look more like a man, and that will solve all your problems. And then like you just said, a couple of years later, she's like, what the hell happened? I've changed my mind. I want to be a woman. And now all the crap just comes down.
And it's irreversible. I mean, you can't, if you have a double mastectomy, they're gone. Yeah, you can say, well, just go get implants. Well, it's not the same.
No.
They're disfigured.
Yes. And I also think 2 million is too low. I think they should have hit them with a lot more than 2
Well, I think they see a lot more coming along. I mean, come on, this just opened the floodgates. You think that's the only case out there?
No. I think there are a lot more. But I do think I would have hit them harder than 2 million. But she's got it. So
Dr. Kurt Michelli from Do No Harm calls it a breakthrough, saying it's the first time a jury's validated the real harm to minors from these surgeries. Clinicians failed terribly, he told the Washington Examiner. Another detransitioner, Chloe Cole, who's fighting her own lawsuit, says every doctor doing mastectomies on healthy teens should be scared. Varian testified she felt instant regret, nerve pain, and lifelong shame from being disfigured. Michelli urges the medical system to support detransitioners through the physical and emotional scars. This comes after the Supreme Court upheld bans on minor trans surgeries in Tennessee and over 20 states last June. But in places like New York and California, doctors face new liability risks for these safe haven procedures.
So just so people understand, states like, there's certain states who just banned it, right? Hey, we're not going to do this. This is ridiculous. But now you got states that said you could come here and do it. So people who are going there now have this out where it's like, okay, if you do this to my child and the child doesn't like it and later in life, we could come back and hit you with multi-million-dollar settlements. And that's the thing, like Eric was saying earlier, that can stop this, that'll really stop it in all particular areas, right?
Yes, because I mean, I'm not an expert in it, but I'm willing to bet that doctors who are performing this will not be able to get malpractice insurance. Yes. Because there's a definitive risk, there is a precedent, and there's potentially more precedents. So they're not going to be covered. So how are they going to be able to go about this? Either they go underground and break the law, that's a big problem, or they just have to stop. And it appears that the stopping is occurring because the professional organizations or associations have changed their verbiage now. You put a liability there, and suddenly, well, maybe it's not that important.
If the state forces you to do something, like says you have to do this, that's different than you offering the service. Because in this particular case, they offered this young girl this service and then convinced her family that she needed it, right? They convinced her family that, hey, you need this surgery. Because for psychological purposes, and that's not what that's not what happened. She didn't need the surgery, and now they got to pay millions of dollars. And it's obvious their insurance, their malpractice insurance is paying, which is going to kill their practice because a $2 million settlement. Now you got more money, but it's probably going to come out of this.
I'd have to confirm it further, but Jordan Peterson has also complained about this, and it was Canadian policy. I'm not saying it's a U.S. policy, but he was speaking of Canadian policy that as a psychologist, he was not allowed to guide people with gender dysphoria into saying, this is a phase or whatever. He had to always affirm the other identity, and that was by law in Canada. And I think as potentially some states might have something similar. So I have a feeling that this case you're going to see, especially with the guidance coming from the professional organizations, is going to change some of the requirements. I remember many years ago now or whatever, it used to be somebody could not just get an operation to have a quote sex change operation. They'd have to literally take like 2 years to do it. And they had to have, like a lot of psychiatrist visits, things like that. They had to live like the other side for a certain amount of time. And so it was not wasn't a rapid procedure. It was something that was kind of really long, drawn out, well thought out, or I don't know if it's well thought out, but it wasn't just a, hey, I want to do this. Oh, here, let me give you a prescription.
Yeah. Well, I think now, unfortunately, when it comes to the transgender movement, it's not about the facts of reality, right? Because no matter how many facts you lay out, they're going to deny all the facts. Men are stronger. Here's the biology. They deny all the facts, and it's about how you feel. But now, as you can see, how you feel, that can cost you big bucks. And hopefully this will stop. This will at least have people pause and say, okay, what can we do for it from here?